Hey so family, it's your girl Miravid. Welcome once again to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to learn the sewing aspect of this basic blouse. In our previous video, we learned how to draft this. I'm going to drop the link to that video in the description box so you can check the drafting aspect. And on this video, we are going to learn the sewing aspect. So let's dive right into this video. I went on to place my patterns on my fabric. This is a Duchess fabric. So we are going to note our center front, okay, and ensure that it is at the folded part of this fabric. I'm just going to align it like so because when we cut it, we are cutting it on fold. So for the zipper, we're going to be cutting the allowance at our fabric. I'm leaving enough space, making room to also add our seam allowance, okay. And then when I've gotten my result, I'll go ahead to pin this down. After pinning down my patterns to my fabric, I'm now marking in my allowance and I'm taking note of that bust dart. So you can see I'm following the curve we have there as well. And then I will mark out ½ inches for the armhole area. So I actually marked out 1.5 inches for the side seam allowance, and then the armhole, the shoulder slope, and the neckline I'm marking ½ inches. I'm going on to connect it at this point and link it up to the hem of the blouse. So I'm also taking note of my folding allowance as well, so take note of that. Next, I'll go in on my back pattern to mark my allowance, and then ½ inches for my joining allowance on the armhole, the shoulder slope, and the neckline. Now our zipper area, remember we didn't add this when we drafted it, so we're going to be adding that right away. So you can go in by 2 inches or 1.5 inches for your zipper allowance, okay. So for me, I'll be doing 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance, and then I'll go ahead to mark this down. Using my ruler, I went out to trace out my zipper allowance, and we have our fabric ready now to be cut out. Please note that the center front, you don't add allowance to it because that area is on fold. As you can see, the center front is just placed directly on that folded area. You don't need allowance there. And then just cut out as you can see me do. I'm cutting out my back pattern. Take note, I added 2 inches at the hem of this blouse as my folding allowance because we're going to be folding the hem by 2 inches. And then I'm cutting out every other part by ½ inches and the zipper by 1.5 inches. So when you're done cutting your patterns on your fabric, what you should have at the end of the day is 2 pieces for the back and just 1 piece for the front. Now our cutout bodice is ready on our fabric. Next, we are going to be cutting a facing. Now a facing is what you use to turn the neckline to just give it that neat finishing. So what I did is just to cut out a short piece that is enough to cover the neckline and at least half the armhole at least, okay. And then I'm placing it. So I'm placing for the front. Ensure that the center front, you know, where you have on fold, when you're placing it on that facing, is also placed on fold, and then you trace out what you have right there. So on fold should be cut on fold as well. So this is what our facing looks like, okay. So it's going to be used to turn our neckline. I'll do same for the back. We have 2 pieces for the back, so we don't need to cut this on fold. I'll go ahead to cut 2 pieces of this, one for the left and one for the right. So right here we have our facing for the back. As you can see, is in 2 pieces, okay. We're going to use this to turn over the neck. So next we're going to draw out our dart on our fabric, okay. We want this dart to be transferred to our fabric. This may be difficult for beginners if you don't do this. So you want to transfer what you have on your pattern right to your fabric so that when you want to sew, you know the exact point you're sewing as your dart. So what I'm doing right now is to extend the dart lines from the patterns to the fabric, even the center dart leg. Just extend every line you know will serve as a guide to your dart. So for the bust dart, this is how we'll be folding it the way I demonstrated on our patterns. So after folding on my fabric, I'm just trimming out the excess because we don't need this. We'll be closing up this dart when we sew. Next I'll do is to transfer my waist dart to my fabric. There are different ways to transfer this dart to your bodice, but I like to use this method of using pins to note out the dart points. So I'll just use my pins to pierce out through every point of that dart so that it can show on the other part, and then I'll use my chalk to mark it out. I'll do same for the rest of every point. That way when I turn it over using the pin as a guide, I can draw out my darts on my fabric. So at every point I see my pin, I'll go ahead now to mark it using my ruler as well to draw out my darts. This is just an easy trick. There are many ways. If you want to go ahead to remeasure again, you can still do that. So I've done that on one part, I'll do that on the other part. I would also do the same for my bust darts. So now that we have our dart transferred on one side, on the other part, I'm just lifting up the pattern slightly and then marking out every point of my dart. And then I'll connect and redraw my dart. It is that easy. So now I have all my dart points, and this is how it is. This is how we'll be sewing on our machine. I'll be doing same for the back bodice. Remember we retraced our dart, so you want to use that particular dart we retraced. Please note that you need to do this on the wrong part of your fabric because that's where you'll be sewing. I would also be drawing my zipper line. I'm using 1.5 inches for the zipper allowance, so I'll go ahead and note that down. At this point, we are ready to stitch our bodice, so we'll go ahead to start sewing. Starting from the waist dart, I'll just pick it like so and pick the two edges from the top to the bottom and sew. So you can actually take this over and press it first so that you have a crease line as a guide to how to sew this. I'll go ahead to sew this to the end. So this is what we have. I'll be repeating the same on the other side of the dart. Next I'll be sewing is my bust dart. So ensure to arrange this well as this is not exactly equal. You can actually use your pins to hold this down to help you put it in place. I'll go ahead now to sew the second dart. So for the second dart, I'll just draw a straight line as I had struggled to align the right placement on the first dart. I had to lose it and retake it again. So I didn't want to make that same mistake here, and that's why I drew the center leg as this will guide me to keep it in place. Make sure that you take this to press when you're done with the dart, and your bust dart should be lying downwards like so. I'll go ahead now to add up the darts for our back as well and repeat the same process. When we are done, we are going to press this down to give it that flat look. So these are my facing that I'll be using to turn the neckline of our blouse. I would be folding only the hem of the facing. This is to give it that overall neatness inside of your dress, or your outfit rather. You can go ahead to overlock this, weave it if you have an overlock machine. But if you don't, you can actually do this to conceal it from fraying. Next, we are going to join our facing, right side facing right side. I'm going to arrange this like so. And we are going to take that half inches we had taken on our fabric. When we transferred our pattern to the fabric, we had added half inches. So that is our sewing allowance. So I've taken that half inches and I am sewing the shoulder slope. I'll be repeating same on the other shoulder slope. Now what we have done on this facing, we are going to do the same for our bodice. Now this is the front part and I'm just placing the back on it, right side facing right side. Okay, and then I pin this down and I'll take half inches on the shoulder slope as well, just as we did for the facing. Mark this, please. If you're a beginner, try to mark out your seams so that when you get to the machine you won't struggle. Okay, and we are going to join the shoulder slope on both sides. Now we have joined our shoulder slope. The next, we're just going to open it up. Can you see this round part? That's our neckline. We're going to place the facing right over the bodice like so and pin down. Right side facing right side. You can see the rough side is facing me. The right side are touching each other. Go ahead to pin this down. Now we're going to sew our neckline. I'm going to take that half inches we had added when we were transferring our pattern, taking it round the neckline, and then I will draw this out. This is where I'll be sewing. This is our front and back neckline joined together. I'll take it to the machine and sew on that half inches, as you can see me do. When you get to the shoulder slope, ensure to open up this seam like so, up and bottom. Okay, so open the facing part, open the body side as well. You get to the other shoulder slope, do the same. Open the shoulder slope like so. Don't sew it close, or else it may not look seamless when you are done. Next, we are going to notch. Okay, when you create a curved stitch, the right thing to do is to notch it so that it's going to lay flat when you turn it over. Next, as you can see me doing, is top stitching. So what I'm doing here is to stitch out that half inch we just did on our facing. Okay, on our facing, not the bodice. Can you see? So that half inch is resting on the facing. It's not going to show on your blouse on the front side. Next we will turn over is that zipper area. We don't want it just flying like so. So we're going to join the facing and the back area of that zipper side. So you just arrange it like so and so half inches. We are just turning the facing so it's not, just flying on the air. So we are joining it with the back bodice. After joining it, we are now going to just trim out a little of that sharp edge so that you can turn it over like so. So this is what we have right now on the back. Can you see? This is the other part and you're just going to fold it like so. Can you see how I folded it? Let the facing be touching the back of the zipper area, right side facing right side, and then you join. And then I'll trim out that half sharp edge and turn it to the front again. So this is what we have. So the neckline is not relaxed yet because we need to iron it. Okay, it's going to relax after we've pressed this down. While pressing the neckline, please add hemming gum so the facing stays in place. After pressing down, we have our neckline now looking flat and laid. We are going to join our zipper. So I'll turn it to the back like so. And remember, our zipper had measured 1.5 inches allowance. I still have the line on it, so I'm going to be sewing my zipper to that line. I have a detailed video in my channel on how to fix a zipper, just in case you find this too fast. So I'm going to be placing my zipper over the back part of my bodice like so, and I'm not placing it exactly on the wrong side. I'm placing on the right side first, because when we place it first, we are going to flip it over to the other part. Just watch what I'm doing. Then I'll pick the other part of the back bodice and place my zipper like so. Like I said, you can check out my channel on how to properly install a zipper. After installing a zipper, next we're going to shape this blouse. So depending on the allowance you had kept when you were transferring your pattern to your fabric, you're going to shape it by that inches. So I had kept about 2 inches for mine, and I'll be shaping it by 2 inches. So I'll go ahead to shape this on both the right and the left side. Take note that when you're shaping, your bust dart should be facing downwards like so. So go ahead to arrange this with your pins so it aligns before you shape. Then I'll go in by the allowance I had used when I was transferring my pattern to my fabric, and then mark it out and use a line to connect. It's on this line that I'm going to be stitching on. I'll repeat same for the other part of the bodice as well, shaping on both sides. And when I'm done with it, I'll go ahead now to hem my blouse. I had kept 2 inches for my hemming, so I'm going to fold in back that 2 inches to give me the actual length of this blouse. This is my cutout sleeve. I also have a video on how to cut out sleeve, just in case you want to also check that out. I'm going to be shaping the sleeve first before I fix it to the bodice. After shaping, I'll go in to fold the hem of the sleeve. So I'll be folding by 2 inches. This depends on how many inches you had kept or intended to fold it by when you were cutting it. So I'll fold in by 2 inches and sew it round. Now the hem of this sleeve, it's almost at the wrist, so that hole is a little bit tiny. So you need to stretch out as you sew so it doesn't squeeze in at any point, because it's not a big place. So I will adjust this while I sew and keep stretching out like so. At this point, the sleeve is ready to be fixed to the bodice. I'm going to bring in my bodice. Then I will just arrange that facing and let it align properly, the shoulder to shoulder, let it align. That is the bodice and the facing. Let it align, and then I'll go ahead to pin, because you don't want it shifting at any point. If it doesn't align, you will not like the result. So after I've done this, I'll go ahead now to fix my sleeve. Then I'll pick up my sleeve and turn it to the right side, and then put it into my blouse like this, bringing out the sleeve from that hole, that armhole of the blouse. Then I'll align that shaped side of the bodice and the shaped side of the sleeve. Then notch the center point of that sleeve like so, the midpoint. That is the point that is going to rest on that shoulder slope, and then I will pin up. If it's your first time, you may need to pin it all round before you sew. But for me, these 2 points is okay. I'll go ahead to just start sewing it round. While you sew, ensure to arrange it. Let it align properly. So this is how you're going to just keep sewing round until you meet the starting point. That is where your stitch had started. You're going to meet it, and then you know that you're done with that sleeve. Now this is what I have, and then I'll turn it over to the front. Your sleeve, if properly installed, should lay as flat as this, even if you've not pressed it yet. So go ahead to install your second sleeve, and please, you will need to overlock this. Where you're making an outfit where you're not using a full lining, you will need to overlock it to give it that neat finishing. This was the final result of our blouse. Please like, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.